Attention darts fans, after searching high and low, to and fro, from coast to coast on wine and toast, the award for best hashtag in the game goes to Dynamite Darts Content. And your winner is the weekly Dartscast, baby. 3 words, Dynamite Darts Content. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to an episode of the weekly Dartscast. I'm Alex Moss. And joining me as always, it is darts statistician, Mr. Hang Tight, Burton, DeWitt. I didn't get to ask you this last week, so pleased to ask you this week. How are you doing?
Well, I was doing well last week, and I'm still doing well this week, so you didn't miss much. How are you doing?
Glad to hear it. Yeah, all good this end, thank you. And we've got lots to come on the show. You're going to hear from the newly crowned World Seniors Champion, Robert Thornton, and the professional amateur, Paul Hogan, and one of the Riley's qualifier winners, Matt Good, coming up on the show later. But let's start with, well, there is only one place to start, isn't there? And that is with last week's Premier League night in Belfast. Going price throwing just the 2 9-darters and a 170 on his way to winning the night. Is the world number one back?
Well, clearly he's made a significant regression because he averaged over 108 in the quarterfinals, did it again in the semifinals in that classic win over Michael van Gerwen, but then dropped all the way to a 105 and change in the final. So I think we can say that his best is now behind him. But no, seriously, I mean, it was a fantastic night for him. I mean, averages are one thing, the 2 9-darters, the 170 out is another. To do it against the best players in the world, to do it against Michael van Gerwen, who's playing like the Michael van Gerwen we're used to seeing, was just incredible. And, you know, he's had a pretty good start to the year now. He's won one of the nights now in the Premier League. He's made a final on the Pro Tour. He goes in to this weekend in the Euro Tour as, well, the only person to have won a Euro Tour in the past 18 months since he won both of the events last year. He's looking like the Gerwen Price that he was at times last year, and especially at the big moments, and that's why he is the world number one. If he plays like that, well, obviously that's what we expected from Michael van Gerwen 5-6 years ago, week in, week out. If he plays like that every match, he's going to be very difficult and very rare to beat. There's no reason to think he can't kick on from there, especially now that we're really getting back into the flow of things and we're seeing darts. Okay, there wasn't any event this past weekend and there won't be a Premier League this weekend, but most weekends and most weeks there will be events like it was for 5 or 6 years before 2020. So I think he's on his way back, and I think going back to playing almost every week will help him. Well, at least the weeks he plays. He is a player that tends to take time off. But I do want to see him not necessarily duplicate what he did in Belfast, because that would be an almost impossible ask, but to play near that standard more often and to be able to bring that type of level almost every night, like Michael van Gerwen used to do a few years ago, like obviously Phil Taylor did for so long. Because if he does, then he's every bit the world number one that we come to expect from world number ones before him. Boy, that was an impressive night, but I do want to see more like that.
I guess if you wanted to show someone that doesn't watch darts, this is the performance of the best player on the planet, the player that is ranked number one, then you would show them last week in Belfast. You'd show them Gerwen Price's quarterfinal to win it with the 170, and then the semi-final against Michael van Gerwen, winning it in a decider, throwing the 9-darter, and then the final getting a second one of the night and beating James Wade 6-4 to do it. And only the second player to throw 2 9-darters on TV on the same day. Phil Taylor, the first to do it in the Premier League final, 2 in the same game. But Gerwen Price making some history, the first player to throw 3 televised 9-darters in the same calendar year. And we're only 7 weeks into 2022. So could he get a few more this year? I don't think you'd back against him doing it. But to start with the world number one part, and that is something that, as we've touched on the show quite a bit recently, is under real threat, and it's probably going to be under the most threat it's been this weekend in Risa, because he is defending 25 grand on his ranking from 2 years ago. So he needs to make a final minimum to keep hold of that number one spot. And we could end up with a final in Risa between Peter Wright and Gerwen Price. The winner finishes the weekend as the world number one. How good would that be? But good to see Gerwen getting back into showing us that the form that we all know he's got. And to be fair, last his year as world champion, he had his setbacks, missing out on the Premier League through no fault of his own darts. It was down to that COVID test. But he had a fairly good year. I mean, he won the Grand Slam. He made the final of the World Grand Prix, a semi-final of the UK Open, 3 other quarterfinals in the TB ranking event. So it was a good year for him. And picked up 5 titles as well. And this year, we've seen him really start to go through the gears. You look at the 114 average he had, I think, the weekend before the Premier League in Belfast, and getting to a semi-final. He's had a final as well. He's looking in good nick. And as I said at the start, when you want to see the world number one in action, you want to see him do things that not many other players, if any other players, can do. And the 2-9 darters is certainly something that we've only seen Phil Taylor do before in one night on TV. So he's laid down a big marker. He's done a few of them in the last 12 months, the Grand Slam, the 2 European Tour titles that he won as well. He's made some statements, but that is certainly the statement of a world number one. To hit the 2-9 darters and to produce 3 games of that high quality does take some beating.
We're now, of course, 3 weeks into the new season of the Premier League with this new knockout each week format. Has it won you over yet, or would you still prefer a return to the old format?
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at the vote, how it's going for our listeners at the moment. This is our question of the week. What do you think of the new format? Are you a fan? And I looked at the vote last night when we were talking, and it was 77% going with yes, I like it, and 23% going with no, they don't like it. Maybe there's a little bit of bias there because we did just see Gerwyn Price throw those 2-9 darters, and the old format, of course, during the league phase, you wouldn't have seen that because Gerwyn, like all the other players, would have only played 1 game. He wouldn't have played the 2 or 3 games that he ended up playing that night. So I guess you can look at it that way, and especially last week as well, how good it was. You had 3 6-3s, 3 6-4s, and a 6-5. So you had, 68 legs of darts in one night, which is sometimes that's more legs of darts than you see in a session at the World Match Play or the World Championship. So you're getting a lot more value for your money if you are a fan going to the event, or if you are a viewer at home. You are seeing more legs and you're seeing the best players go at it more often. So for me, yeah, I'm liking it at the moment. I've got to be honest, I didn't see a lot of it last week. I was away, so I only saw the 9 darters and a few bits of the highlights. But from the feedback that we're getting and what we're seeing on social media, I think the fans are liking it, and it's still a long way of the season to go. We've only got 3 weeks into it. Are we going to be saying the same thing towards the end? I don't know. But at this moment in time, I think it's been a pleasant surprise for me personally. I think it's gone well so far, and we are seeing those rivalries develop. We are seeing players go up against each other a little bit more often. We are seeing matches that we don't see for 4 or 5 weeks, and they're games that you look forward to. I was just looking, we don't have a Premier League night this week. I almost put it in the spreadsheet for this week, but we're not going to be making our picks until next week for that. But next week you do have, in the quarterfinals, Johnny Clayton against Michael van Gerwen, Gerwyn Price against Peter Wright, the big 4, if you like, going up against each other in the quarterfinals. There's some big clashes that you're getting week in, week out, and for this tournament, the Premier League, the top players week in, week out, got to say, I'm a fan so far.
I still think it's a little too early to make any real conclusions about this new format, but there is something that I find a little interesting in the early days about what this Premier League has led to outside the Premier League. And there's always been talk about players who struggle in the Premier League and it kicks over for the rest of the year. Glenn Durrant, you can say last year, but I think the problems predated that. Mark Webster being the most famous example over a decade ago now. But I think there's the possibility for that to run in the opposite direction, and even more so with this format, because you're not just getting one match on a night. You have the chance to win what is in essence a title or a mini title each week. That can lead to real bursts of confidence that I think one-off matches each week won't do to the same extent. And if you look so far on the Pro Tour following the weekends, following the Premier League weeks. The first week, Peter Wright won it. He didn't win on the first day. He did manage, though, to win on the second day over Gerwyn Price in the final. And then the following week, Joe Cullen didn't win the title, but he did make the final. He beat the world number one with a very good performance in the semifinal before going out to Johnny Clayton in the final. Of course, Clayton had not a Gerwyn Price-like day, but did have 2 high-quality matches before that final. But he did. But for Joe Cullen, he made the final, and he followed that up with his B game, winning the title on the Saturday in Wigan, and then playing it to at least a higher standard than Saturday on Sunday and winning it. But again, managing to get over the line, figuring out how to win those matches. And I think a lot of that came from the confidence that he got from the Premier League and obviously from the Masters. It's still early days, but I'm curious to see if this keeps playing out. We won't get to see it this week at the Euro Tour, but next month we'll have some more Players' Championship events that immediately follow Premier Leagues, as well as a couple Euro Tours that will. And I want to see how the players who do well on the Premier League, whether they kick over and do that same thing in the Pro Tour events. Now, of course, these are supposed to be the top 8 players in the world, and you expect that they're going to win their fair share of these events anyway. But there is at least some evidence so far that the players who are getting those 2 or 3 matches and playing well on them on the Thursday night are taking that form over. And if that's the case, I do want to see a return to the old format, because that's an added advantage for the top players that might just be a little bit more than was intended. It's still early days. I still want to see whether any trends really do develop, but it's something that I'm keeping an eye on, because at least it jumped out at me with Joe Cullen winning both of them and Peter Wright winning one the first weekend, that maybe it's giving the players who are playing well in the Premier League even more of a boost than they normally would get in the ranking events that follow it.
We shall see. Well, we're going to be looking ahead to the return of the Euro Tour in a moment, but let's get to our first guest on the show, and it is with the new World Seniors Champion, the all-time great, Robert Thornton.
I'm joined today by the World Seniors Champion, as well as the all-time great, Robert Thornton. Robert, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. How's things?
And thank you for joining us. You've won a lot of titles in your darts. You were World Master, UK Open champion, beating Phil Taylor, World Grand Prix champion, beating Michael Van Guren, played a few seasons of the Premier League. But how does it feel to be the World Seniors Champion now as well?
It feels absolutely brilliant to be the very first Seniors World Champion. I mean, I'll never forget it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a great accolade.
When we're talking this time last week, you were getting ready to open the show against Bob Anderson. How were you feeling heading into the tournament? Were you confident of your chances of going all the way?
Yeah, I was confident. I was a bit nervous and apprehensive. I was going up to play a legend, you know what I mean? Didn't know what kind of reception I would get. But yeah, I mean, I was always confident that I'd go a long way in it.
And of course, that was the first match of the entire tournament. You averaged 94, and it ended up being the second highest average anyone posted all week. What was it like, though, playing in that first game of the tournament and to put in a performance like that?
I was very nervous. To be honest with you, I didn't think it would have been that high with the amount of nerves I had. But once I got into the game, I settled down a bit, and the crowd were absolutely amazing.
Next up on the Friday, it was Trina Gulliver, and you put out 4 ton-plus finishes on the way, another 3-0 win. Then you had 2 more ton-plus finishes against Dave Prins, another 3-0 win in the quarterfinals. How are you feeling going into the finals day on the Sunday?
But to be honest with you, I didn't really realise that I'd actually played like that well. And going into the finals on the Sunday, to be honest with you, my confidence was sky high.
And then on the Sunday in the semifinals, you played Kevin Painter and served up one of the most entertaining matches of the week. Painter had that 170 finish and got back into it at 3-2, but you ended up winning the 6th set to win 4-2. Do you think that match, though, with Kevin helped made you more battle-tested entering the final?
Yeah, I think so. Kevin and I play roughly around about the same kind of speed, and we've both got the same temperament. We just don't want to lose. And I think that helped me going towards the final, yeah.
And then the final with Martin Adams, you race out the traps, 118 average in the first set. You're touching on a 98 average after 3 sets as you lead 3-0. That must have felt good to bring that game out in the most important game of the tournament.
Yeah, it did. Only for the simple fact I've played Martin quite a few times and I know what he's like. And if you get in front of him, he just keeps coming back at you. And this time, he just never got going in it. And it gave me a lot of breathing space in the final.
Now, in that final, missed a few match starts, some of which actually cost you a set. Of course, the previous weekend, Joe Cullen, I think, missed 10 match starts before winning the Masters. Guren Price missed 12 a year ago in the World Championship. We can only imagine what those moments are like as you throw out a double for a title.
It's kind of nerve-wracking, but to be honest with you, I think 2 of my doubles landed on the wires and it got any closer, and it got a little frustrating. So I think I let that get to me, and then when I came back out, I just kind of put my head down and tried to just forget it and keep going.
We'll come back to the seniors later, but let's circle back to the start for you in darts. Where did it all begin and how did you get introduced to the game?
Well, that's my wife's fault. I used to practice now. For me, it was a hobby. and I was watching a darts game on the television, and I says, I can beat them. And she says to me, well, go and prove it. And the rest is history.
So fast forward, started 2005, and at the age of 38, you made your Lakeside debut in the BDO after your wife got you to start playing. What was it like, though, especially when so many players are debuting so much younger, to, at 38, to go and play in the World Championships for the first time?
Well, when I first made it, I phoned my wife and says we're going to Lakeside because we've always watched it on television. And to be there, I was absolutely terrified. When I walked in, I saw them superstars and that there. I'm like, oh no. But I did all right. I did okay in it.
Yeah, you made the quarterfinals on debut, and a few years later, your first major title comes at the World Masters 2007, beating Martin Adams in the quarterfinals, Darryl Fitton 7-5 in the final. What are your memories of that weekend in Bridlington?
To be honest with you, a lot of it's a blur, because I'm one of them players that when I'm through a game, once I get that total focused in it, that I don't remember half the legs before it. But I remember Darryl Fitton taking the lead, and I took a 1-5-6 out to level the set up again. And then I went on and won the match. But I remember taking a couple of good finishes out against Martin, but that's about it.
And now, of course, not long after that, you made the jump over to PDC and very quickly made your mark, winning a title, securing a spot in pretty much every major tournament in your first couple of years. But what was that transition like from the BDO to the PDC, especially since at that time so many players were moving over each year?
Oh, it was very, very hard. Well, we had to knuckle down and just go on with what we do and get up and play darts, but it was very, very hard. We were away week in, week out, the travelling, everything. It was just very tiring and very hard.
Well, that travelling paid off again in 2012. You joined an elite group of players to have won majors in both the codes, winning the UK Open, beating Phil Taylor 11-5 in the final. How special was that weekend in Bolton?
Oh, that was very special. Especially to beat the world number one in the final. It was unbelievable, especially after the draw I had. The draw I had was unbelievable. My wife just took me aside, and every round we get through, she said, just go up and enjoy it, and that's what I did.
Well, wouldn't be the only time you beat a world number one in a major final. It's just a few years later, you joined that short list to have beaten both Phil and MVG in a major final as you edged out MVG 5-4 in one of the all-time classics in Dublin. What do you remember about that night, though?
I remember knowing that when he broke me in the first set, I managed to break him back and keep my throw. And I thought to myself, right, I've got to just, on my throw, just get starting and make sure you don't give him a shot at a finish. But darts don't go like that. There's always ups and downs in it. But I was just glad to keep myself even with him and then just surge ahead in that last set.
Well, that win secured you a return to the Premier League the following year, having played in it in 2013 and 2014. What are the standout memories from those 3 years playing in the Premier League, Darts' biggest roadshow?
But the atmosphere was absolutely awesome, and especially when they came to Glasgow, I had all my family there. It was absolutely amazing. And when you've got that kind of crowd behind you, you think you can beat anybody.
Of course, after that World Grand Prix title, you went through a lean few years on tour and weren't able to replicate that success. What do you think contributed to the plateauing that you saw in 2016, 2017?
To be honest with you, I'm not too sure. It was a lot of personal stuff going on, and it was just the season stuff like that, and my wife being ill, and I just couldn't concentrate on that. So I'm sorry, but my family comes first, and you've got to put them first.
At the end of 2020, you lost your tour card, but as we've seen with this past weekend, there's still a lot to play for players that don't have that tour card. How have you found this last year, 14 months, not having that tour card?
Well, it's been hard, don't get me wrong, but I have been playing constant darts. I've been playing the Live League and the Challenge Tour. And then this seniors thing come up, and it's been absolutely. I've been playing a lot of darts, so it's been keeping me hungry for getting back.
And of course, so you mentioned the online league and all the other things that came up during the pandemic. Also heard that you got your driver's license and started doing a bunch of driving. What prompted you to do that?
Well, to be honest with you, I think I got my license 2015, and I had to get my license because my wife wasn't well, and I thought, well, if anything goes wrong, the car's here, I can get her to the hospital or anything like that. And so that was my driving force behind getting my driving license.
Well, back to the seniors, and I have to ask this as I was watching the final on Sunday night with my nan, who's a big darts fan. She wanted to know why you didn't have the teddy with you on the stage.
Believe it or not, I thought he was in my suitcase, and he's not. I actually left him at home. I was absolutely gutted. But trust me, the teddy will be back on tour. It's not the first time I've been asked that this week, trust me.
Well, hopefully the Teddy can make a return sometime later this year. Of course, there's the Seniors Tour back in a few months with the World Match at the Lakeside and the World Match Play in Hull. Being the reigning world champion, have you been invited yet, or is that still to be determined?
Yeah, I think I am in them. I think I'm in the Masters, so I'm looking forward to it. I'll be practicing hard again, and hopefully lift that title as well.
And last one for me, I have to mention the walk on the Proclaimers 500 miles. I'm a big Proclaimers fan. Are you a fan of them too? And is 500 miles your favourite song of theirs, or is there another one?
No, I like the Proclaimers. I like their songs. I just like the beat to their music. Your Letter to America, stuff like that. But 500 miles is my favourite.
Well, you won't have to wait. Hopefully you don't have to wait 500 days for another title. We'll see when you try to win a few of those at the World Masters and World Match Play. And thank you. And congrats on winning the World Championship.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Robert for joining us. Now on to the Euro Tour. It returns this weekend with the first of a possible 14 events this year. What are you most looking forward to about the Euro Tour's return?
Those words, it's in and of itself, the Euro Tour's return. Although the possible 14 is also exciting, and it's a thing that the PDC didn't announce with any vocalness. You had to catch it at the bottom of a press release, which I hadn't because I hadn't read it in detail, but thankfully you did. And that does excite me. You know, there's that possibility that there's going to be one more weekend thrown in there somewhere over the year, and maybe in a place that we haven't seen the Euro Tour go to before. The Euro Tour is the greatest tour in darts or in sports, as Dan Dawson might say. I think it's at least in darts, very possibly in all sports, full stop. And to get back to the calendar in terms of number of events that we used to have, or even to exceed that, is wonderful. But also, this is an event that, as a longtime Menster Silovich fan, holds a dear part of my heart, because this is where, 6 years ago now, he finally broke through. He finally not just got past the semifinal stage where he had lost 11 or 12 times in a row, but went on and lifted the title over Kim Huybrechts in a grueling final. Huybrechts missing God knows how many darts at double 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1 in that match. I think he missed 6 or 7 overall before Menser lifted his first title. So getting to see the Euro Tour back with a full schedule, but also seeing it start out in an event that I should add the following year I went to, in as you know, any American would do, making his first ever trip to Germany, deciding to go to Riesa of all places. But seeing the Euro Tour come back with potentially a full calendar, a full season, and starting in an event that I have fond memories of at the very least, I'm just really excited. I also am interested to see how some of these players play, since the qualifiers for this was so long ago. If you look, Devin Peterson, the number 9 seed, and he's nowhere near the top 64 of the Pro Tour Order of Merit right now, just based on the fact that the qualifications for this were done as if it was going to be a 2021 event. So a lot of interesting subplots that may emerge out of this, but the Euro Tour is back.
Yeah, it's great to see. And just looking at that schedule of events that we have got for this year, you've got to be excited for, haven't you? 13 events, 14, as you say, the PDC buried it right at the bottom of their press release that there will be a a 14th one, a date and venue for that to be announced. We're not sure where that could be. We've currently got 7 in Germany, 1 in Austria, 1 in Czech Republic, 1 in the Netherlands, 1 in Hungary, 1 in Belgium, 1 in Gibraltar. Could it be in one of those countries again, or could we see another country? Maybe they make that return to Denmark. We saw how well the World Series went down there last year. Maybe we see them get a Euro Tour. Maybe they go, as you say, to a new country for the first time, and the details of that are still being finalised. But yeah, just to see that schedule is great. And I look back to this time last year, and one of the questions we were answering is, when is the first Euro Tour of 2021 going to be? And sadly, it didn't come round until September, and we only got 2 Euro Tour events. But how good were those 2 events, especially the one in Hungary, the first time we had a Euro Tour in Hungary? And you spoke to the PDC chief exec, Matt Porter, not long after that, and he was pretty excited about it and saying that we will 100% be back there in 2022. Why wouldn't you be? They had 4,500, I think, there for the final day, which is a record. So hopefully we're going to see that again this year when they go back to Hungary. But aside from that as well, it's just going to be seeing a lot of these players on stage. You mentioned it. For a lot of these players to get through, they've got to get through those qualifiers away from the stage on the floor, and then they get that opportunity to play on a stage, and often in front of bigger crowds than you would get in some of the TV events. So you're talking playing in front of a few thousand people, making that trip to Germany, to the Netherlands, wherever, to play against these top players is something that all the players, especially new tour card holders, when they get that tour card, that's something that they look forward to, is getting through those qualifiers and getting a shot at playing on the Euro Tour. And we'll see more of that in the next few events, as you say, because the qualifiers for this one are predated to last year. But just seeing some of the moments that we're going to see this year, because we've only had 6 Euro Tours for the last 2 years, but even still, we've had some special moments. You look back to the end of 2020 and we saw, you mentioned him, Devon Peterson winning his first PDC title, winning a Euro Tour, Jose de Souza winning a Euro Tour, and look what he went on to do, win the Grand Slam, made the Premier League final. And Joe Cullen as well, he's picked up a couple in the last few years as well, and look what he's gone on to do. So you kind of see players that do well in this end up doing well in the TV events and really pushing on. So looking forward to seeing which players make their mark in it this year.
And let's start talking about which of those players might make their mark, not necessarily this year, but at the very first event in Riesa. We still don't have the draw as of the time we're recording, but we do know almost all the players in the field. Anyone you fancy to go on a deep run?
Well, I'll start with a few obvious names, and one of the obvious ones has to be the top seed, Joe Cullen, given the form that he's shown in the last few weeks, winning back-to-back Players' Championship titles on back-to-back days. Joins an exclusive club of players to have done that. And he's been the top seed for a few times now on the Euro Tour. The 2 events last year, he was the top seed, and you've got to go back to 2020 when he wasn't going into a Euro Tour as the top seed. And the last time he didn't, he won this very event, the International Darts Open in Riesa, beating Michael van Gerwen in the final. So he's got some good memories of this event, and he's in the Premier League. He's the Masters champion. He's a player that is, to quote Mac Elkin, riding the crest of a wave at the moment. So Joe's got to be a name that you'll look out for to go on a deep run. And also the man that we spoke about at the start of the show, Gerwyn Price, just had those 2 9-darters, and he looks like he is in some red-hot form as well. But a player that's in his little section of the draw, they could meet in the last 16. It's a game that hopefully we're going to see, because both of them are playing well, and that is Damon Heta. He's made a final recently. He's high up on the averages this year, and it looks like he's making a big stride at the start of this year, because he's in the top 32, and the next big jump for him would be to get in that top 16. And given what we've seen from him in the few years that we've seen of him on the tour and before when he played on the World Series, he is a high quality player. So that's going to be an interesting tie if we get it. So looking forward to seeing those 2. And I'll give another name as well, maybe someone that you wouldn't back to get a deep run this weekend, but I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays, given how he has started the year. And on paper, you look at him and he's 55th on the Players' Championship averages for this year, but he's had some scalps and he is performing pretty well so far this year. And that is Martin Lukeman. He won through the qualifiers of this last year to get in, but since then he's won through the qualifiers recently to get in the 2nd and 3rd Euro Tour events. So he's getting through those qualifiers pretty well. But also on the Players' Championship events, he's had a couple of scalps already this year. He's got wins over Alan Suter, Callum Ridds, 2 quality players there. He's had a few high 90 averages, low 100 averages. If he can bring that onto the stage this weekend, the form that he's showing, he could be a dark horse maybe for the weekend.
Not a name I had on my list, but some very good point there at the end. I'll start the same place you did with the very top seed, Joe Cullen. He's the top seed, although he's no longer number 1 in the Pro Tour Order of Merit. He is dropped all the way down to number 2 behind Gurren Price, just ahead of Peter Wright. It is a very tight race right now between Cullen, Wright, and De Sousa for number 2, with a couple other players, if they lift the title, potentially getting into the mix as well. But Joe Cullen's no longer the number 1, but not that far off. But he comes in. He should come in with a bunch of confidence. Okay, it didn't go his way at the 3rd Premier League night, but the previous weekend lifting those 2 titles and making the final will help, I think, tremendously. But I also think this might be a chance for Michael Smith to bounce back. It's a bit weird that he's the only player that hasn't gotten a point in the Premier League yet. And okay, if you go by the first night, he lost 6-3 with an 88 average, but he put 7.5 points on it the next match, only to again lose 6-3. So what does he do? He puts another 7.5 points on his average. Average is north of a ton. Still loses 6-3. His game has been coming back. It's taken some time. We know he took a little bit of time off when the season ended after the World Championships. Now he's back playing, and he's getting better each week. I think after 3 losses in the Premier League, he's going to start getting some results on the stage, and he'll do it in the Euro Tour. And especially being on the opposite side of the draw as Gurren Price, as Michael Van Geuren, as Joe Cullen, I think will help him. Granted, potential quarterfinal against Peter Wright awaits if he gets there, obviously, as we don't know which unseeded player he's going to go against. But I think this is a good opportunity for Michael Smith to start getting his season on track. Of the unseeded players, there's a lot of names that jump out as potentials. Obviously, Ryan Searle is in the top 10 of the Pro Tour Order of Merit. Big title is just around the corner from him. Anything can happen in terms of the draw. He could, end up going against, if he gets out of his first match, he could end up going against Joe Cullen or Peter Wright in the second round. And that's what makes it difficult to tip one of the non-seeds. But the reverse is also true. Joe Cullen could end up drawing Ryan Searle that first match. And the level that Ryan Searle's been playing at, he's only won a title this year, is such that you'd expect that he'd have every bit of a chance against no matter who he draws. I think it's going to be a big week for Ryan Searle. Regardless of the draw, if he goes out early, it's because someone has had to play really well to beat him. Among the darker horses, I'll tip Jermaine Watamena. I'm just looking at the list. I'll mention him because he's been slowly coming back into form. Weird saying slowly for a player who plays as rapidly as he does. But he really was out of it for most of last year. But he's been playing all right this year. And, getting back on the Euro Tour and getting some results under his belt could help kickstart his season. Although another player, Simon Whitlock, who hasn't been getting results but has been playing at a very, very, very high standard, kind of like a player who we'll be talking about in the next question. We won't be talking about him this one because he's not in the Euro Tour event, but we will be talking about him in the next question. Hasn't been getting results, Simon Whitlock, but has been playing at a fantastic standard. If he keeps that going, eventually the results will come. And again, maybe this is the weekend for him, especially on the Euro Tour, where he's had some success, and he's been he won his major in the European Championship almost a decade ago now, and has been to a final as well. So I'll tip Simon Whitlock to also have a big week.
And now move on to our next guest on this week's show. He is the record 6-time winner in the Riley's UK Open amateur qualifiers. Here's our chat with the professional amateur, Paul Hogan.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the professional amateur, Paul Hogan. Thanks for the time, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Alex. Yeah, really good.
Good to hear. Well, we've got lots to discuss with your darts, but let's start with the most recent event that you played, and that was the online league last week, going all the way to the final. You had a 102 average in one game on finals night. How did you reflect on the week as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough down there. It's sharpened my game up a lot because when we had the pandemic, whatever it is, I wasn't really playing darts a lot, and and you're playing really good players down there, and it's really sharpened my game up. I was gutted to lose in the final, but overall, I played well.
And we've spoken to a few of the players like yourself that have played in the league before, and it's always interesting to know as a player how you go about making sure your preparation is spot on, because you've got the morning starts and then the late night starts, especially with the final. How hard was that to work around to begin with?
It's really hard, the night ones, because I can't really get the time off for the mornings, so I do late. I know it starts at 10 o'clock and it doesn't finish to about 1:30. And I have to be in work for 7 o'clock in the morning. But I'm used to playing at 10 o'clock, because I was drawn out in the Lakeside the other year. I was coming out at 10 o'clock. You've just got to get used to it, and I'm coping with it okay. So yeah.
Well, as I said a moment ago, plenty to catch up with you on from the last few years, and let's start with the last World Championship that you played in, start of 2020 at the O2. There was a lot of talk going on behind the scenes in the lead up to the event, but it didn't seem to faze you at all. How were you feeling heading into that event?
I was feeling okay. You're there to win the tournament, and I know there was a lot of goings on and everything. I just wanted to go up there and try my best, and I got to another quarter final. I missed the 9 dart on 36, but I didn't really turn up against him in the quarterfinals. But fair play to him. He lost in the final to Wayne. But overall, it's just nice to be back at the Worlds again.
Definitely, going to come on to that, and we have to mention that 9-darter attempt as well. That very first set, the second leg you take out 155 check out, and then that next leg narrowly missing the double 18 for a 9-darter. How gutted were you to miss out on that?
I was gutted because I'd done a 9-darter for England a couple of months ago, and I was really playing well at the time, and I was gutted to miss it, because I would have been the only second players in the Lakeside to hit a 9-darter on TV. So I was really gutted about that.
Well, the world shut down with the pandemic not long after that, but before then we did see you make the trip over to the Netherlands for the Dutch Open. You made the semi-finals of the singles and the pairs as well. What was that weekend like to play in?
It's a mental weekend. There's like 3,000, 4,000 players. You're playing over the two days. It's a mental place. You get some bad players. Some of the Dutch players are really bad, but they just love it. They absolutely love playing against people like me and the rest of the players. And we done okay in the pairs as well. Yeah, it was a good weekend for me. Even though I lost to Brian semis, but overall it was great.
As well as the Dutch Open, you had some deep runs in Scotland and the Isle of Man in early 2020. They all counted towards the rankings for this upcoming WDF World Championship. How closely were you following the rankings? Because I think you mentioned you didn't play a lot last year because of your wife's health.
I was number 5 in the rankings, and I didn't really go anywhere because my wife, was in hospital with heart trouble, and I kept looking at the rankings, and I kept dropping down and dropping out. I just lost my interest in playing darts. My wife comes first, and I kept looking at the rankings, and I was dropping down and down and down. I thought, oh God, I'm going to miss out on it. When the table finished, I got a call from Nick Rose saying I was qualified. So I was happy with that.
Definitely, and I remember when we spoke to you right after the run you had to the last 16 of the 2017 UK Open, one of our early episodes of this show, you said that you wanted to pack up darts after you lost to Glenn Durrant at the start of that year at Lakeside, but it was your wife who had a lot of belief in you, kept you going. How much of a support has she been for you in your career?
Oh, she's been absolutely fantastic without the wife pushing me. She drives me here, there and everywhere, wherever I want to go, and she believes in me, and I couldn't do without it, to be honest. I mean, losing to Glenn, that was gut wrenching. Bringing 11 legs on the trot, and then just missed that double 8 going a double 16. I don't know what happened. I don't know what went on in my mind. Just couldn't believe I lost it.
Well, those runs I mentioned earlier, they were enough to get you that return to Lakeside, but as we know, the event was postponed, and then we see your name in the entries for Q School last month. What persuaded you to give Q School a go?
Well, I've always wanted to have a crack at it, and I thought, I'm too old now. I thought, I'm 58 years old, and the wife says, just go for it. Just go and have a go at it. And I went there. I didn't do too well. I think I was trying too hard, to be honest. I was missing a few doubles, and and I just lost a bit of confidence instead of just playing my own game. I know I can do it, you know what I mean? But at that time, I don't know. I don't know what was going through my mind.
Well, you mentioned, without giving it away, you mentioned your age, but you didn't have a go at the World Seniors recently. Is that something you've got your eye on, or considering that you've got so much darts going on at the moment, maybe that's something a little bit further down the line?
Probably a bit further on down the line. I did look at it, and I thought, no, I'll give the Worlds a miss, the playoffs for it, and I'm looking, to have a go at the Masters playoffs or something like that.
Excellent. Well, earlier this month you were back in the Riley's qualifiers at South Benfleet, and you go all the way to book a return to the UK Open. Talk us through that day and your run to the coveted spot in Minehead.
It was a tough day. There were so many good players there. You just look around the room, and you just go, oh God, this is going to be really tough. You had Ryan Allenton there, David Brazicek, Josh Payne. I could just carry on naming them. You know what I mean? I thought this is going to be a really tough game, but I played really well all day. I've got through there three times at that place now, and I don't know. I think it's a lucky venue, and people keep saying, "Oh, deserve a king of the qualifiers." I just laugh at them. But it was a really tough day, and I was pleased to get through.
Yeah, you definitely are the king of the qualifiers. My colleague Matthew Kiernan, who you'll know from the grassroots scene, mentioned to me you have the record for most times winning a Riley's qualifier, and that's not really surprising. That's the 6th time you've done it. How proud are you of that record?
I'm very proud of it. Yeah, because every time you enter them, it's really, really hard. You've got to be focused for the day, and I'm really proud of it.
Well, I mentioned the 2017 run to the last 16 you had at the UK Open when you beat Gary Anderson and Adrian Lewis. The following year, 2018, we had the Storm behind closed doors. You made the last 16 again, and for the second year running, it's a certain Go in price who stopped you. Going up against Go in those 2 times in Minehead, did you sense he would make it to the top, get to where he is now?
I thought. I mean, he's always been a steady player. I thought he would win one world championship, but he's just getting better and better. He's got the sponsors and everything, which I haven't. But I can't give up work or nothing like that. But I gave him a good run. I lost 10-9 to him, and. Funny thing, he said to me, he just missed the 9 dart again. He turned around to me and said, he went, "Who showed you that when I was going for the double?" I said, it must have been me then, because there was no crowd." He just laughed. He just tapped me on the shoulder and laughed.
Well, you mentioned there was obviously no crowd for the last time you were in Minehead, but this time there will be fans back. It'll be your first time with fans back for you since that giant killing run in 2017. How much are you looking forward to being back at Minehead with the fans there, who I'm sure are going to be behind you again?
Oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm practicing well. hopefully I'll get a nice draw and then start beating the big boys again. I mean to beat Gary Anderson and then Adrian Lewis, that was a mental weekend. That was. I mean to beat those kind of players. I've always had a good run against Gary, but I've never played Adrian before, and so I played really well against him, and I was happy to win. I just nearly fell to the floor. I thought, the relief, to beat him.
Yeah, definitely special memories. And the UK Open less than a fortnight away now. Then after that, it's back to Lakeside for the WDF World Championship. How are you feeling about that event? Do you think having the extra time is going to help with your preparation?
I think so, yeah. I just keep doing what I'm doing, I mean, I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to go mental, things like that. I'm just going to keep doing what I keep doing. It's a tough first game, I think, against Justin, but I've got the experience on that stage, so, I'm really looking forward to playing. If it doesn't happen. And
lastly, we remember you had the West Brom away kit colours at the O2 on your shirt. How do you see the rest of the season playing out for the Baggies? Can they recapture some form and make a push for promotion?
No chance. Not at the moment, no. It's got to be the worst football I've ever watched them play. It was like going back to the Tony Pulis days where it's like hit and rush, you know what I mean? And okay, we got Steve Bruce in there. He's lost 2 on the trot, but okay, you can't judge him after 2 games. But we got Middlesbrough tonight. But who knows?
Well, hopefully your darts will keep going well, Paul. We really appreciate your time and all the best for the UK Open in a few weeks and the Lakeside in a few months as well.
Thanks very much, Alex. Thank you.
Thanks again to Paul for joining us. Now on to some darts that took place this past weekend. The Development Tour made its return for 2022 and Josh Rock, winning 2 titles and making a final, didn't play in the first 2 events of the weekend, but what a debut for him. Can anyone stop him topping the Order of Merit?
I mean, the answer is yes. But who, I don't know, because, boy, that was extremely impressive. And it's not really all that surprising based on what we've seen from him so far. Even though he hasn't won a match yet on the Pro Tour, he's had the highest average against him of anyone in the Pro Tour. And he's been playing at just this phenomenal level and just getting unfortunate. But now he's gotten some results. He's played 3 events, won 2 titles, lost a final in another. Despite missing the first 2, he's played the 7th most matches of anyone. He's had by far the highest average of everyone. And despite that, he is by far I guess it is by far. There's one player who played 1 match who's close to him. But of anyone who's played more than 1 match, by far the highest average against him of anyone. So despite the fact that people have been playing better against him than they have against everyone else, he still managed to only lose 1 match, and that being in the final. I can't recall a weekend on the Development Tour where someone has managed to do that. We've seen, very, very good weekends before. I mean, Rusty Jake Rodriguez had 2 of them last year, but it wasn't every single event that he was legitimately contending for the title and rarely having a bad match. Other players had good weekends and played well, but they went out with some matches where they just didn't play up to par. Take, for example, Rusty Jake Rodriguez, who had that great year last year. Maybe a little bit unfortunate not to have won a title. In the very first event, he made it to the last 16, averaged over a ton, but lost 4-2 in that match. But he also had matches where he averaged under 80 against Adam Gavlas and other matches in the low to mid 80s. And yes, he was having matches well over the ton or in the high 90s, but there was an inconsistency over the course of the weekend, especially when he needed to lift his game, not doing it. Same for Nathan Rafferty, same for Louis Williams. They had spurts, but they also had some bad matches. Josh Rock didn't. Granted, over the course of a year, everyone's going to have an off day and everyone's going to have an off match. But the consistency that Josh Rock has shown so far this year, not just in the development tour, but also those 4 Players Championship events, show that he's a star in the making. Yes, someone can stop him. And there's a long development tour season to go. But it's going to require someone to lift his game or Josh Rock to drop back down to earth. From what I've seen so far, I'm not going to tip either of those to happen.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. And you look back to last year with the development tour, and it was split between the UK and Europe. And what did we see on the final weekend of the European one? We saw a player on their debut win 2 titles and make a final, Fabian Schmutzler. Not quite at the same level as Josh Rock. Josh did it in 3 events. Fabian did it in 6 events. Still great achievements for the both of them. And back to Josh Rock, because you don't want to get sucked into the hype. It's easy to do when you see a player do what Josh did at the weekend on his debut on the development tour, winning 2 titles, making a final, racing to that top spot after the first weekend. But all the signs suggest that we have got a player on our hands here, and a player that should forge a successful career at the pro level. And he's got a great team behind him. We spoke to him just after he got his tour card at Q School. He's part of the Big 5 stable, and you look at the players that are in that stable, particularly the players that have the tour cards at the moment, Alan Suter, John O'Shea, 2 experienced pros that are going to help him on his way. And he hasn't got that first win in the Players' Championships yet, but as you touched on there, the way he's playing, it's going to be sooner rather than later. You're not going to play that well, continue to play that well and not pick up results. So that's going to do him the world of good confidence-wise, going on the development tour, winning titles, winning games, to then go back on the pro tour. Looking at how things are shaping up, yes, he has got a decent lead. After the first weekend, he's on $5,000. He's around about, I think, £1,800 lead at the moment. But there's a long way to go, isn't there? If this was last year, you'd be saying he's got one hand on the top spot. But we've got a much more exciting year ahead, haven't we, in 2022? We've got 5 weekends of the development tour, I think 24 events in total, 2 weekends in Germany coming up. So there is a long way to go. And you look at the players down that list, not just on the order of merit, but players that we have seen play on the development tour this past weekend, players that are still eligible, and players that have got tour cards. It seems like there's probably more this year. It kind of feels like there's more this year than there's ever been, looking down that list of players like Bradley Brooks, Kevin Dukes, Keane Barry, Louis Williams, Nathan Rafferty's just got one, Neil Zonneveld, Adam Gavlas, Rusty Jake Rodriguez, Gert Nenchez. I'm sure I'm probably going to miss one, so I'll stop there. But there's a lot of quality in the field, and even players that don't have their tour cards who are making strides as well. So it's a long way to go, as you say, but if he can continue this form, it's going to take some stopping, isn't he? So cracking first weekend, a long way to go. Let's see how he gets on in the next few weekends, and if he can keep that form going, the rest of the players, they've got some catching up to do.
And now we'll move on to our third and final guest of the weekend. It's the winner of the first of the Norwich qualifiers, Matt Good.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by one of this year's Riley's UK Open Amateur Qualifier winners, Matt Good. Thanks for the time, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm all good, thank you.
Firstly, Matt, it's been just over a week since you went all the way and won in Riley's Norwich on Saturday last week. What has the last week been like for you? Has the achievement sunk in yet?
First 2 days was, that was pretty, good for me, to be honest. On the Friday night, I said to my dad, I was preparing well for the lead up, and I said to him, I'm going to bring it home. I felt confident in myself, and that, I'll end up going to Minehead.
Well, we'll come back to last weekend later, but let's go back to the start for you in darts. When did you first get introduced to the sport?
I think at the age of roughly about 12, 13. It was through my dad, really, Darren Good. He was the one who welcomed me into the sport. Just basically hitting the board at home, just practicing at a young age. I didn't really think much of it as like going far. I just thought, just see what happens. And then from the age of 16, I just started playing in my local league. Born in Harwich, so I played, in the Harwich League. Since then, I started at 16, I've had a 3-year spell with Hanover B. Special shout-outs to Dave Sands, Dale Ty and Malcolm Bell. All the experience behind them just welcomed me into the darts, and that's just improved me. I had a good 3-year spell with them. They got promoted, and then onwards, at the age of 17, I moved into the A team. Since then, that's where my darts has come from. And I'd like to give a special shout out to John Bennett, Peter Cheeseman, my dad, Darren Good, and 10 times Harwich single champion Alan Matheson, who I play alongside with.
Excellent. Well, before last weekend, what would you have picked out as your most proud achievements in darts?
It's got to be obviously pushing myself. I've moved into playing Essex Super League. I thought I've got to give it a go, and I started playing that at the age of 20. But my achievements is obviously I haven't done too much lately. Obviously, like I say, I've been playing in the Harwich local league since the age of 16. I've moved through into Essex Super League playing that. But several years running, I've had the most 180s, the most wins several times. Couple of seasons I've had the highest rate out of the season, which is a 167. And I've won I'm double champions with my dad two times, which is including runners up once.
Very nice. Well, let's get on to last Saturday. Living in Harwich, as you said, what time did you set off from home on that Saturday morning to get to Norwich in good time, and who did you travel with?
I travelled with Sean Fox. He is an EX Riley's qualifier. He qualified 3 years ago at the same venue at Norwich. He beat Paul Hogan. So we set off about 8:30. We got the 8:30 train, so we got up there nice and early. I think we got to the venue about 10:30, 11:15. Just hitting the board slowly, nicely. Get there, nice early practice, and then gradually, as soon as I walked through the door, I was just feeling confident. I thought, it's coming home.
Well, we know the Norwich qualifier is the Rob Cross qualifier because that was the one that you won back in 2016. I've played in it before. I know the quality there is in the field. Were there any names that we might know that turned up for it, the one that you went to?
Well, obviously you had Sean Fox, EX qualifier, like I just mentioned. You had Kevin Edwards. He's qualified previously. I know him pretty well. James Richardson. I played him online darts several times throughout lockdown. That was the first time I met him. Quite a top bloke. And other than that, I think you had about a field of 152 or 162. Other than that, I didn't know no one, which was good for me because I just relaxed and let the darts flow.
And you mentioned there was around 150 players that entered the qualifier last weekend. How do you go about playing in a tournament like that when you could have long breaks between the games?
I wasn't too bad, to be honest. I think my first game was about an hour and a half, 2 hours into the comp, which started at 12:30. So I thought, let me find out when I'm on, how many games, and go from there. Little practice on the board beforehand, just so I could prepare when I'm on and when I'm expected to be on.
And we saw on social media the comments about the venue. How off-putting was it for you? Because from the outside looking in, you had a 9-darter, you won the day. It didn't look like it fazed you at all.
Yeah, the venue was a put-off. Obviously, you had the toilets. But other than that, obviously, you had ockies missing on the certain boards. But luckily for me, on all of my games, I played on an ockie, which was good. Going through rounds by rounds, I was just getting better, stronger. Until obviously, I think that was the last 16, I managed to hit the 9-darter, which obviously meant a lot. I didn't celebrate big. Reason for it was I just wanted to keep me cool, go on and win that game, and go on and win the tournament.
Yeah, got to mention that 9-darter. Have you had a 9-darter in a match before? Come close to hitting one before?
No, that was my first 9-darter I've actually had in a competition or in a local pub, to be honest. My first one come come back home just on the practice board against my dad. That's the first time I've ever hit one. I've missed double 12 several times for it, but that's the last bit you fall short on.
So what was that feeling like? You get the 9-darter, the first one you've hit in a proper competition, and as you say, you tried to keep your cool and finish the game and go on and win the whole thing. How did you do that?
Well, the adrenaline in me was just getting high. I thought, no, keep your cool, Matt. Just give it, just give it a little fist pump to me mates, and go on and win it. That's what I wanted. Because I thought, coming off winning that last 16, I thought, just keep your cool, go on and win. And that meant a lot. Once I won the tour, once I won the final, that just meant a lot.
Yeah, as you say, you go all the way, you win the final, you book your spot at Minehead at the UK Open for the first time. What was that moment like when you won the final and you had secured that debut?
It was fantastic. I was absolute buzzing. I was buzzing for it. I thought, yes, now's the time. I can go onwards and upwards from here.
Excellent. Well, we saw a lot more positive feedback for Riley's Norwich because they had that qualifier yesterday, the second one. But did you consider taking the snooker rest that was used for one of the Ockies last weekend home as a memento?
Well, obviously, throughout that, all I got was I got offered the Blade 6 dartboard. Owen Binks, former PDC caller, chalker, he come up to me, congratulated me. Everyone did, but everyone was buzzing. And he gave me the Blade 6 dartboard, and that's, it just means a lot. From all the support, all the comments coming in.
That's a nice touch, and it's been a week now since you won. Have you played much darts at a local level in the last week? What's the reaction been like in the darts scene in Harwich?
I played Friday. I play obviously every Friday is the Harwich League, so I played Friday. I had the Sunday and the Monday off, 2 days off, just to let my body settle down, because obviously I've got that plantar fasciitis in both heels. So I thought I'd just let it settle. Then from on Monday evening, I just started practicing, easing back in, and then from Tuesday I've been on the board every day, and I'll be preparing the same, leading up to the UK Open.
And we've seen a mix of players come through these Riley's qualifiers, some household names, an ex-world champion in yellow class, and players that played in the last PDC World Championship. But yourself, darts is a hobby. Do you work full-time as well?
Yeah, obviously at the moment I'm a full-time delivery driver, so I'm out on the road every evening, apart from a couple of days a bit off, and that's the 2 days I'm not working is when I just hit the dartboard in my free time. Yeah, just looking forward to it, looking forward to seeing names, who I play, and on I go, really.
Definitely. Well, we're only a little under 2 weeks away from Minehead now. The draw will be coming up soon. But what's the plan for the next few weeks to get yourself ready, and who will you be travelling to Minehead with?
From the 2 weeks lead up to it, all I'll be doing is just hitting the dartboard, preparing the same, playing in a couple of. We've got the Harwich singles coming up, which I've never qualified, but I will be looking to do it this coming Friday. Got to have a Super League game who I play for on Wednesday night. But other than that, just be hitting the dartboard. I'll be travelling up with my dad on the Thursday, and buzzing, looking forward to it.
Definitely. Well, what are you most looking forward to about Minehead, the UK Open, that first taste of a major event? I know I can play darts on my game. I know I can play, and I'm just looking forward to being one of them players in the UK Open. It means a lot to me. Lastly, away from the darts, we noticed that you're a Chelsea fan, the newly crowned Club World Cup champions. What else do you think Chelsea can win this season? The Premier League looks a bit off now, but you're in the League Cup final, still in the FA Cup and the Champions League. Are you just going to sweep all the cups?
Well, we'll go one cup at a time. I think the League Cup will be good. Followed by, I think we should do well in the Champions League, to be honest. Got a two-spell leg against Lille. Should get past them and see what happens from then.
Well, good luck with that, and congratulations again, Matt, on coming through the qualifiers last weekend. We wish you all the best for the next few weeks, getting ready for Minehead, and of course when Minehead comes round, we hope it all goes well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to Matt for joining us this week. Now we'll finish up with 3 listener questions, which I take it the listeners don't care what I have to say, because 2 of the questions are directed solely to Alex, and I think that's wise to not care what I have to say. So we'll start with one of those from Warren Allsworth. Alex, how many different email accounts have you created to vote for Stompe as the fans vote the last player into the World Senior Masters?
Well, if he doesn't win the vote, then the answer will be not enough. But no, seriously, just the one vote from me. Sorry to let you down, Warren. It was actually our producer Hannah who broke the news to me that Co was in the vote. All those tweets asking for Co to be involved in the World Seniors kind of paying off. He's got that shot, and there is nothing more I'd like to see than Co walking out at Lakeside one more time. I'd definitely make sure I was there, because that would probably complete darts for me. But yeah, fingers crossed he's going to get there. The Matchstick Army, a little help from our listeners as well, getting Co the nod in the vote. I'm keeping the faith, and should add as well, I messaged Co and said good luck for the vote, Co, and he said, what vote, mate? So that shows how much interest and attention he's paid in it. But hopefully he'll have more interest in it shortly when he wins the vote. Fingers crossed.
Well, I can say I created 0 accounts, and I guess I should vote, but they left. Well, maybe there's a reason they didn't have Mark Walsh on the vote. Maybe because he's going to be invited anyway. Fingers crossed on that.
Well, yeah, I think you've only got about 45 minutes left to vote, so we better wrap up the show very quickly so you can get that vote in. Well, the next listener question comes from George Dobson. He says, who would win a bare knuckle, Alex or Burton?
Well, I think this is a little unfair, because I think most likely it would be you wouldn't be coming here to the U.S. for it, so I would have to fly all the way over to England for the fight, and probably be around Alley Pally. I'll if I'm not drunk from my flight, I'll definitely be jet lagged, possibly both. And if I'm drunk might help, but I think the jet lag will hurt me. So I feel like you would win, but only because you'll have that home field advantage and I'll be jet lagged. If it was a fair fight, if we were meeting in a real third country location, let's do it in South Africa or something, you'd have no chance.
Yeah, I'm happy to concede this one to you. I think if we were to play in fair conditions, I'm pretty laid back on all those things. So yeah, I don't think I'd be doing much fighting. But I think the only time I get wound up really is when I'm watching Colchester or Stowmarket play football and get caught up in the game and give some abuse to the referee who's cheating. But yeah, I'll give the nod to you on this one. But I guess if the World Seniors were to come up with a new brainwave and say, you two bare knuckle fight, if Alex wins, Co gets a spot in the World Seniors. If Burton wins, Mark Walsh gets a spot in the World Seniors, then I'd definitely be more up for it. But yeah, that's an idea for Modus and Jason to get on board with, hopefully.
Yeah, if they did that, I would definitely hire a personal trainer. And our last question, also not directed to me, this is from Pim Huberts. How would Alex solve the Ukraine-Russian conflict?
Yeah, I love that Pim's put his faith in me for this one. I'll admit I've not really been watching the news for quite a long time, especially during the COVID times. So I'd rather pick my darts up and have a throw, get a few treble 12s or do something else. But I can't really give a sensible answer on this one. So how about one leg of 501, double in, double out, Putin against the head honcho of Ukraine, and the winner takes all?
I'd be down for that. It's a good thing, though, the question was only directed to you, because with my job, I can't discuss politics on the show. But I like that idea. Something makes me think, though, that Putin is a very good darts player in his spare time. Anything else for this week?
Just to say thanks to our guests for joining us. Thanks to everyone for listening. I did mention that I would give a shout out to anyone that voted for Stompe in the World Seniors vote. I said if there was 100 people that got in touch, I'd read out all 100 names. Thankfully, there wasn't 100. Hopefully, more of you, though, did vote for him and just forgot to tweet us. So a shout out to Wim, Dizzy Yates, the captain, Sean Rafferty, Bill Richards, Jake, Dalian Ryan, Nathan Barrington, Juanita McDade, Preston Noonan, Steve Holmes, our producer Hannah, Jacobus, and Darts DeSinger. Thanks very much for voting for Co. Hopefully your votes will count and we'll see the Matchstick back on the Lakeside stage very soon.
Fingers crossed indeed. And I guess I have 45 minutes. I guess I'll get that, 42 minutes now. I guess I'll get that vote in. So you have to edit in a thank you to me. Or Hannah will have to edit that in when she edits the episode. But thanks to all of our listeners and our guests. We'll be back next week to recap the very first Euro Tour event of the season, and then look ahead to the very first ranking major of the season with the UK Open, as well as the return to the Premier League after a very long 1 week absence. But there'll be some darts to enjoy this weekend. There'll be some hanging tight to do if you think you're going to be watching the Premier League before you can enjoy the darts. So do both of those things. You do it each week anyway, and I think you do it all pretty well. Hang tight, enjoy the darts, and listen in 7 days' time.